Hey there, I'm Spoods, designer and broadcast producer here at VCS English. For the past 5 years, our team has been bringing you action-packed League of Legends from the Vietnamese region we all know and love. Across our core team and our guests, we are proud to have collectively volunteered thousands of hours into this broadcast, to say nothing about our socials and community teams who've contributed thousands more, keeping things running behind the scenes. We've been here since 2019, from the Flash era and all of its Visa heartbreaks, to the insane watch party of GAM Esports' victory over Top in 2022. We've seen it all, and we've grown alongside our league. Our mission has always been to showcase our amazing region to an international audience, with the aid of international voices in doing so. And with such a vibrant community across all of our platforms, I think it's safe to say that we've achieved that goal. Unfortunately, as the VCS makes its transition into the consolidated Asia-Pacific League in 2025, our future is, for the first time in a long time, quite uncertain. Our community will still be around, and so will we, that's for sure. But while we would love to continue broadcasting, we don't know what form that might take. Therefore, most likely, today marks our final show together, at least for a while. And frankly, we're gonna miss putting these together. But we've definitely got one more left in the tank, and we're certainly gonna give it 110%. So please, sit back, relax, and enjoy our show tonight. Thank you very much for joining us on this journey.
And welcome. It is the finals. Not just for us, but for the summer split of Vikings and GAM rematching in the upper bracket. And I'm so happy to be here for all of you, but I'm even happier to be alongside two of my best friends, Quincy and Rebel Fox. How are the two of you tonight? How are you, Rebel?
I'm doing fantastic. Feels cathartic to be here for the final game of the VCS, maybe ever. So there's nothing more to say about that. I think we've got two fantastic teams. We've got probably one of the most lightning matchups we've had in years, and I'm just ready to start covering games.
Quincy, how are you feeling? It's been too long.
It's been quite a while, and I actually missed quite a bit of the splits, but I've definitely shown up for playoffs or shown the games. I've seen the games, I gotta say it like this. And coming up from this Juggernaut match, it was a 5-game banger series. I just hope to see one more of that today.
Absolutely, and I'm going to get straight to what our takes are on how it's going to go. We do have our predictions if production can throw those up on screen. How do we think it's going to go?
If I had to take a wild guess, everybody has like 3 2s on the board.
Yeah, it's pretty much... Yeah, I mean, we don't know where Milky is. He was meant to be here, but Silent Milken has been too effective. But most of us going the Vikings way. Quincy, you are in for GAM, but Rebel, I don't see your prediction here.
Yeah, I have a lot more descriptive of a prediction that actually needs to have its own slide, so we'll get a chance to see it. So GAM goes up 2-0 in 18 minutes of total game time. A cloud rises over the Vikings camp as Guri falls ill and must be hospitalized. Just as it seems all is bleak, Ego, hooded, emerges from the stands, approaches Kadi. After all this time, of course. And of course, in the final games, one-on-one, since nobody's able to stand up to anybody on the side of GAM, it is in fact S of M who takes over for the one-on-one role and wins them the side selection in game number 5. That's how things are going to play out. If anybody wants to know the actual script leak, that's what we're doing here.
I mean, look, we're not meant to reveal that we have the script. I kind of think it's weird that you've done that, but that is actually the script that we were given before the game. Look, I want that to be the way it plays out. But me and Rebel, we agree. A 3-2 in the favor of Vikings. Quincy, you agree on the 3-2, but you've gone the GAM side of it. Care to justify?
Yeah, I mean, we just have to have one party pooper, right? I mean, I also was like, do I actually toss a coin and lock in the 3-2 prediction either way? And then I was like, if I now predict Vikings, I was afraid that everybody would predict Vikings, and I would have been right at that, but... coming from the history of watching VCS over and over again and seeing GAM win over and over again, and that one time Cerberus, and that those 2 times Team Flash back in the day, but that was like ages ago now. It's just, it just feels disingenuous not to predict GAM when you actually like maybe asked with a gun to your head and they're like they shoot you if you predict wrong, and then you would basically say GAM, right? And in that situation, I gotta say I want Rebel's prediction, especially with that all cinematic around it to be true with the reverse sweep and everything. But I don't think we live in fairy tale land, and I think GAM will take it 3-2, sadly. And this also hurts to say because we have had Hankai on the broadcast and he switched over from GAM to Vikings now, which is of course 1 point in favor of the Vikings. But I think GAM will still take it 3-2. It's just the reality of VCS.
And there is so much history. You sort of alluded to it. There's so much clashing. There's so many storylines that we have been building up. Like, as Smooth said before we went live, we've been here since 2019. We've borne witness to GAM's domination of the VCS. Aside from very short periods of time, GAM has been this juggernaut of the VCS. And it has finally been Vikings that has really risen up to challenge them. And this is potentially the last name ever written on the VCS shield. For GAM, it has to be so important. For Levi, it has to be so important that the full stop at the end of the VCS is doing the GAM time. And at the same time, on the other side in Vikings, to get this win, to solidify yourself and take that step into whatever comes next for Vietnam, there has to be really high running motions, and people can say, oh, this doesn't matter, Worlds is decided, and that's true. Both of these teams will be going to Worlds regardless of the outcome tonight. It matters. It really, really does. This is the swan song of the VCS, and these teams are going to be desperate to get on top. Rebel, I'm going to go to you. I want to talk about some of the stars on these rosters. Where are you looking? I'll start with Vikings. Where are your eyes glued?
After watching through a bunch of VODs and everything that we've seen, I was super harsh on Guri when he entered the split on Saigon Buffalo. He was a replacement for one of my favorite players and Beanjay, and then he had some rough games because I don't think it fit his pool perfectly. I think Guri has developed to just a completely different breed of talent. He has become a jungler that is, I think, inarguably at least number 2 in the splits compared to everybody else. It's a perfect little meta for him to be able to step into. And so I think Guri has really risen much higher than I ever thought it was going to be. And on a roster with like Kadi and Shogun and B, and then a rookie top laner, Guri has really stood out to me to be like, I was not expecting him to be so good.
Yeah, for sure. Particularly that Zyra that has become this meta tyrant recently. Guri has had some incredible performances on it. I also just want to say, I'm going to throw over to you, Quincy, to talk about the GAM side of it, and we may well be saying similar things, because we're in an AP jungle meta, and Levi's on the Rift.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Levi was always known for these AP jungler picks, and especially his Karthus comes to mind, and also his Gragas back in the past. But that I think is kind of funny because, as Rebel said, like Guri, when he entered the scene, he was playing like full AP Gragas as well, and was playing the Talia in picks like this. And not only has Guri individually stepped up, but also like the meta kind of came closer to him, so to say. But on GAM side also, there's a player that I need to highlight here, and that's Kiaya. He's been the unarguable top lane goat of the VCS, and he's playing against the rookie top laner. That was basically his food in the Juggernaut series, and he definitely is still hungry today as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, again, this is maybe a bit self-indulgent. I've been watching this league for nearly 6 years now, and I don't just mean watching. I mean casting and really being part of it, and Levi and Kiaya have just been this duo. So much has been said about Levi. We sort of all know who Levi is, and there is so many things we could say about him, but none of it would be particularly original. We get it. He's the GOAT of the VCS. But I have to point to Kiaya, this, like, specky little kid, like, looked like he weighed about 30 kilos, comes into the league, playing mid at Worlds in 2019 or 2018, maybe, playing Kled mid. Yeah, 2019, playing Kled mid, looking like a good laner, but what was he doing? What were they playing? To now being this uber confident player who is just like, he is seriously contending, like right alongside Levi to be the best player the VCS has ever seen. Going from this kid that would sweep up net cafes in order to get a little bit of time on the computer to play League, and not even being able to type his own username, to being where he is, to this absolutely world-class top laner, it honestly makes me kind of emotional. So in order to save my emotions, I want to look down at the bot lane, because that's another huge story, because it's Shogun tonight. Rebel, what's your take on the bot lane?
Yeah, I mean, for everything that we've mentioned about what it's been to like watch Guri develop, I think all of us experienced that with Shogun as well, because we saw again, one of our favorite teams was Saigon, and since they've kind of become Vikings, but the long-standing tradition of having Shogun on this team has lasted the test of time. And I think he's everybody's favorite player, or he's damn near close to everybody's favorite player, because he came into the league, he was an absolute monster. He took the job from somebody who was pretty decent in Ariete, and then when he went to Worlds alongside Taki, they took everybody by storm. Everyone was astonished by how, somebody 18, 19 years old could be so damn good at League of Legends. And he was just a crux for every team he's been on since. Even now, I would say he's one of the main reasons that Vikings are so good. He's an absolute linchpin in the bot lane. He's near impossible to break during the laning phase. He's still one of the best team fighters that they've got. I mean, he's a staple. And he doesn't have the pedigree or the longevity that Levi or Kiaya do, but to me, he's right now probably the ADC to look at inside of the VCS and say he's probably our most famous. He might be our most talented. He might have even taken the throne away from somebody like Artemis for the longest time because of just how good he's been in the last few years.
Yeah, I totally agree. Quincy, I'm going to pivot a little bit. I want to talk to you about how you want to see these teams approaching the match. I will keep on you for GAM, given that you did predict them as the winners. How do you want to see them approaching this match and neutralizing the strong players from the Vikings?
There's a certain red flag that I saw in the Juggernaut match that was the following. In the first game, Kiaya was playing Aurora, and they kind of won that game relatively convincingly, I gotta say. Like, I mean, it was, of course, one of the longer games, but I think that was still, like, GAM doing GAM things. And afterwards, after this result, it was Vikings banning Aurora 4 games in a row, and yesterday in the series against Wales, who they stomped 3-0, I mean, all fair to them, but also Aurora was not mentioned in this draft whatsoever. I have a feeling that they are afraid of the
Aurora. I just want to cut in because I know you're talking about Aurora is disabled.
It's disabled?
Yeah, she apparently breaks chrono break, so Aurora is not available, which is actually a very big deal because that's a free ban for the Vikings. That's actually not a bad point.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, Aurora would have been fantastic for Kiai. Now he doesn't get to play this one at least, so at least now has a little bit more of a chance. But regardless of that, they are still like the range top lane option that Kiai can go for. He was known to play the Twisted Fate in the top lane on the AD build. He was also playing things like the Cannon, like the Gnar back in the day, and also his Renekton is pretty legendary. And also, like, picks like smaller top are also playable at the moment, and stuff like Zeri I've seen in other leagues. I would expect Kiaya, despite not really being historically known for those kind of picks, to just abuse a range top lane matchup and really destroy Nanawe, or at least try to do so.
I'm going to ask you the same question, Rebel. How do you want Vikings to play out these games? Is there draft? Is there certain play patterns that you can think of?
So a few things that I want to see changed up. Number one, I don't know if anybody like that playoff series was ridiculous. I'm sure you're a part of casting it. How many of those games went like 30 plus minutes? I think 3 of them were 40-minute endeavors. That was a slog. And part of that was its resilience from Vikings, but GAM would slowly take objectives over the course of time. I think there were 3 or 4 games where they took every single dragon in the game, and then they still lost 2 of those, which is astonishing. I would love to see the Vikings not give up every single dragon. That's my number one goal for them today, is to not hand away Dragon Souls on 4 dragons in 3 of 5 games or something along those lines. That's number one for the side of the Vikings. Number 2, And it was something that was bugging me when we were watching yesterday's games. It feels like there's a number of times in this meta where every single member of the enemy team is some kind of squishy member, and there's like one person who's got some tank, one person who's got some CC. At best, there's two. I would love to see something meta breaking. I talked about assassins, I talked about siege mages. I'm like, somebody that can drop a bunch of damage on a marksman would probably make things a lot harder on a lot of these teams, right? You're not going to be expecting like Emo and Easy Love both played very, very solidly, but I don't think either of them dominated the lating phase. If you can take some early pressure by applying it to one of those two roles where you're supposed to have this massive damage and have somebody kind of go crazy at the beginning of the game to help control that dragon, I think things will be easier to transition into the mid game for the Vikings and not just hand gam most of map control and then hope to God that they have enough in the tank to be able to scale into late game. At least once, I would love to see them try something like that, a little bit off kilter than what we've been seeing, which is just double marksman and then more damage in the top lane and even more damage in the jungle.
Speaking of what we've been saying, let's have a look at the path these teams took to get here. First off, with the regular season, having a look at the standings, it was Vikings that came out on top. One series better than GAM. It actually was a win over GAM as well. It wasn't any silly upsets. These are our 1 and 2 teams. They were a cut above the rest as well.
That's a bit of an understatement. We had 3 teams with winning records and 2 teams played playoffs. It was even funnier. I talked about this yesterday. MG and Blue actually won more games and lost less games than Team Flash, and they lost playoffs, which really sucks. But
yeah,
that was funny.
And obviously, looking at the next stage, it is that playoffs bracket, and when we got into the pointy end of the season, it started out very stompy. It was 3-0s on both sides of the bracket. Then we did have the clash of the giants. It was the same matchup that we're seeing today. GAM did prevail 3-2, but it was very close. Princey, do you have any takes on how playoffs went?
Yeah, actually, after just now seeing the standings again, I'm actually kind of surprised that Wales kind of still got third place, and sadly, of course, they got 6-0'd by Vikings, which is kind of humiliating, but they were at least like close to beating them once yesterday in the third game, and of course not for too long, because they ended up still losing that, and them at least overcoming Flash 3-0 pretty convincingly, and then getting a 3-2 over Team Secret kind of speaks in their favor, and kind of tells me that Artemis still got it, you know, and he's still individually an AD carry that's comparable to Shogun at least, and what hinders him in some ways are following things. Like Lethal Tempo getting removed kind of hurts him. Smaller exists now the champion, and while it's super strong, it doesn't seem like a champion that Artemis wants to play. He had 3 games on it over the whole split and lost one of them and didn't really play it in playoffs, and Darth is not really somebody who would pilot the Smaller himself, so that's kind of a weakness for Team Wales. And they overall seem to be like a team that takes quite some time to get the macro really kicking in and adapt to new picks, like the Aurora also, which they never even considered playing. So that's one of the reasons why Team Wales kind of surprisingly went up to third place, but of course not farther than that, and there's a clear gap between the top 2 teams and the rest of the league.
I'm convinced the only reason Wales won is to drink the tears of salty Team Secret fans. That's what I'm convinced of. Yesterday we had Clockwork on the desk, and that was hilarious, so we got plenty of that.
I think one of the things that I find actually quite interesting looking at playoffs and the season as a whole is a little bit of deja vu, isn't it, from spring season where GAM finished second, come into playoffs, they end up then winning and coming out clutch. And are we going to see that again in summer and GAM continuing their dominance of the VCS?
I mean,
Wait,
we went
Carrix.
already Carrix, yeah.
Yeah.
I fixed my eyesight. I don't need glasses anymore.
Okay. And also, your prediction kind of changed because, Carrix, you were very up on the front that Vikings are going to win this 3-2, and now I see you here in the GAM jersey. What's up with that?
So I like to do a little thing called the caster curse, and GAM, I feel like for the VCS English, it's like our favorite child. But every now and then you want your favorite child just to trip up, so you can just laugh at them. And I feel like that's us with GAM. We've seen them win so many times, and we're like, we love you, GAM, etc., etc. But every now and then we're like, God, just fall over like one time so we can laugh at you.
Did you just say that you think you want your favorite child to trip and fall so you can laugh at them? Is that what I just heard from our?
I
That
think he
is
said that, yeah.
exactly what you heard.
Okay. I mean, I think there's two sides of this argument, which is like,
Yeah.
part of it's GAM has the best dynasty. I feel like it would almost be disingenuous for anyone else to be on the final shield than GAM's name. On the other hand, it would be really cool for the longevity of players like Kadi, who is like the only mid laner to ever take down GAM in like best of 5 situations, or Shogun, who's become an ADC that probably is just more talented than most of the marksmen they've had on GAM for years. To be able to overcome that. So there's positives and negatives to either team winning. I don't think I would be upset with either result. I think honestly, if you go back and you replay today and everybody gave their predictions multiple times, honestly, everyone just wants 5 games. I don't think anyone cares who wins. We really just want a 5-game series.
5-game
And you
series.
brought up a
Going to
very
fill
good
the
point
price.
there, Weber. Kati was on GAM for years, and I actually have personally got to know him as a GAM mid laner. But he actually was a GAM mid laner because before that, he got some experience in beating GAM in the finals with Team Flash. So he
Yeah.
definitely brings up arguments why he could do it again. And I also think Kati individually would be the favorite over Emo in the mid lane here.
Can I also just throw the question to you? Which team is more GAM, right? Kati, B, Hankei, or Levi and Kiaya?
Is this a Ship of Theseus question? Like, if you take all the pieces of the Ship of Theseus out and replace them, is it still the Ship of Theseus? Is that what we're going? We're now into.
I've not heard that reference before, but it sounds like an appropriate one.
You've not heard the Ship of Theseus before. It's exactly what
not.
you're describing right now.
Perfect.
Okay. I don't know. What do you think, Quincy? Is which team's more GAM?
That's actually a very good question. It's like when Hanwha would play Gen.G, like, which ironically happened just minutes ago, where like, who's the real Gen.G anyway? But this with GAM players and former GAM players and coaches on the other side. I would actually still think that GAM is actually GAM because they have Kiaya and Levi. I mean, Levi has always been on GAM aside from that short stint where he went to North America and then to China for a little bit. And yeah, didn't really like that much, I gotta say. It was just a one-off basically in the history of like many years of Levi playing for GAM. He's the signature player not only of GAM but also of the league, and so is Kiaya to some extent, we gotta say. I mean, Kavix brought it up recently with the boy, yeah, breaking up the internet cafes and so on. I think GAM, especially with that top side, is like very much an iconic team. And Easylove also was one of those players that played for them a few seasons ago and kind of made GAM what GAM is today.
Now, I've got one final question before we are heading towards picks and bans that are just a few moments away, which is, I remember in the past we used to talk a little bit about stats and who had the most VCS titles. I remember it was incredibly tight between B and Levi, and I think at one point they both had the same number of titles. So does that mean it's currently Levi with one extra title over B?
Pretty sure, yeah.
So what we're saying is we can have a tie between B and Levi again if Viking Esports wins today's finals.
I'm not going to make that claim because I don't have those stats on hand and I don't care to look them up. So I'm not going to say that outright. Because B also missed, I think, a split, didn't he? Wasn't he gone for a split? And so he might have.
He was
not
sharing
had
time with Elio, right?
Yeah, something like that.
But I think that was like summer 2 years ago. But I think he was still playing in that split, so he would count as a champion.
I see.
Possibly.
All right.
We can have stats team look that up, and by stats team, I'll go and look at things once we do get into game and characters in your way. Take us away.
Mm-hmm.
But first, we do have our picks and bans, Alan and all. I'm really excited for game 1, or you could even say game 6 of this series.
Game 6 of this series. Oh yeah, I mean because we're getting
we had the 3-2.
playing each other. Yeah. Well, I mean if you want to get into that, they also played each other twice during the regular season, so we're well past 6 games.
Yeah, true.
I have to annoy you.
I think that was too long ago, though.
That was too long ago. My bad.
Yeah,
I forgot.
too long ago.
Yeah,
I wasn't here for that.
We weren't talking about the history of teams or anything, the entire desk or anything like that. That's
that's fine though.
Yeah.
It's too specific of history.
What was your prediction then? Because I don't think did we get to see your prediction? Because I don't remember seeing it on screen.
No, you didn't actually get my prediction.
So what's your
I'm wearing the GAM shirt. I've got to say 3-2 GAM.
3-2
No,
GAM.
question mark. That's my prediction. Question mark.
3-2 GAM makes it a lot more clear Everybody is between either Vikings or GAM and a 3-2. I think everybody expects it to be a cool series, so that makes sense. I think everyone's
just said 3-0, right?
I honestly think if somebody were actually doing some 3-0 GAM seems like the next most logical. If it's not a 5-game series, it's probably a 3-0 to GAM.
Where is your prediction though on the graphic, Rebel?
Oh, that's a great question. Spoods, why don't you show him my prediction?
Yeah, show it.
Is your
Show it
prediction
again.
so unhinged, Rebel?
Yes.
That we just can't see
Yes, it is. I'll give you the quick notes of it. GAM goes up 18 in 18 minutes. They go up 2-0, and unfortunately, Guri has to be hospitalized because he's sick from being beaten down so hard. Ego comes back and talks to Connie and says, after all this time, of course, rejoins this team, takes them to 5 games. In game number 5, in the one-on-one to decide match point, S of M, the coach, actually steps out on the stage and beats down anybody on GAM who has the audacity to step out, and they take the side and of course the series. That's the script as I was handed it by everybody else. So
Rebel,
one question. Can I ask one? The 18
Yeah.
minutes for the 2-0, was that for each game or for both combined?
combined. Yeah, we
Ah.
actually get a record-setting 6.5-minute victory in game number 1 here, which is what causes Guri to have such distress.
It's the Southeast Asian games all over again, where GAM won every game in about 12 minutes.
Nothing wrong with that.
Oh dear. Rebel, I don't know if you have, or maybe you want to advertise this on stream, but have you ever considered writing fan fiction?
No.
Because that was pretty good.
Are you
That's
a
decent,
consumer of fan fiction? Because that would be great.
I'm not, no. But I would be if you were to write some fan fiction. Crinsey, what about you? Do you think Rebel would make some good fan fiction, whether on the VCS or
Would I
anything else
make
in
good
general?
fan fiction? Watch
I mean,
it.
he just did, so I mean, the evidence already is sitting there, right?
That's not fiction. That's the script. Riot handed me the script for APAC, and so that we could develop who's going to win. That's something we also, I don't think, mentioned. The winner of this actually gets
No.
read into APAC. We found that out as well. So that's a pretty cool thing to be fighting for. You can say that Worlds is already decided, and if both teams go to Worlds, they're going to be at least a little happy. And we can agree with that. But having a direct spot to get into APAC is also an incredible prize that both of these teams are going to want. I don't think it's likely we end up with either of these teams not in APAC next year, because they're two pretty decently standing organizations that have had quite a bit of success over the last few seasons, especially GAM. I mean, GAM is basically a shoo-in, I think, even if they have to be voted in manually with a crowbar. But both of them would love to have that spot confirmed here and now.
You just put me on this disastrous railroad track of GAM lose this series, don't get into APAC, and then somehow don't get in, and it would just be the most unheard of thing to me, or
That won't
the most
happen.
wrong thing. No.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Not possible, yeah.
Not scientifically possible.
Okay, so let's just kind of look into draft a little bit before draft shows up. What are you expecting to see from both sides? Crinsey, I'll go to you first on this one.
I mean, I already embarrassed myself earlier with saying, like, yeah, I will probably just go for the Aurora, and yeah, guess that was just disabled since last series, so that's not an option. Yeah, I actually expect them today to play on range top lanes, because it's just the easiest way to abuse the rookie top laner that already kind of embarrassed himself last series, and they played against each other, where he went 3-13 on Cannon, I think, in the last game, and if he played a little bit better, arguably Vikings would have won that in the last game. That was an absolute banger of a game 5, I gotta say. So I expect it to be range top into something stable for the side of Nanaue. So looking from the Viking side of things, I just expect him to play like maybe a Renekton or maybe a Nudia, maybe a Cassandra to just not win lane, but provide something for the team so that he can just be an annoyance to the side of GAM. And I actually think Renekton would be a likely pick here because they used it in the regular split against them and won. And also just to deny Kiaya's Renekton is also just something that makes life a little bit more easier for the Viking side.
Rebel, I've got another question for you. So
Oh.
I've got many of these questions coming, by the way. So
Okay.
I've not been able to see many games during regular season. I don't know if you have, but one of the things that I've been quite worried about coming into this is have our signature VCS champions gone? And we've
Yes.
already heard from Crinsey.
gone.
He's mentioned the Renekton.
No, they're gone.
They're
No,
gone.
They're gone. They're mostly gone.
Where did they go? PCS.
Well, like, what are some of the most quintessential champions from the VCS? The one thing we're not missing is
Hmm.
Alistar. Alistar still plays. It's still
Yes.
the Vietnamese Cow series, absolutely 100%. But that's because we're playing 4 damage champions in every other role. That's the issue. So it's like, oh, we need
Hmm.
a primary engage tank who also can soak damage. I guess Alistar is better than most. But like, it's very common to see like Rel, Leona, Alistar, Braum. Like those are common. But like Lee Sin, I don't like Lee Sin's been gone for some time. It's mostly mages in the jungle and then tanks if you're not playing that. So that's a pretty gone pick. I don't even think Nidalee gets picked all that often. She gets picked on occasion, but we're seeing a ton of Zyra, we're seeing a ton of Maokai, we're seeing a ton of Lilia, we're seeing a ton of Shyvana even is popping up, but she's a little less than the others. Like today, I'm guessing Zyra priority is something we'll have to pay attention to from game one because they basically went back and forth picking the champion over the course of the entire series, and Zyra was very influential for the side of the Vikings. So much so that in the 5th game, GAM came out and banned it. They just said no, we're not giving that champion over. So that and Maokai are 2 of the most priority picks for Vikings, and I'm guessing jungle pools are something to pay attention to because this Guri versus Levi matchup has a lot of influence over the macro state of GAM, which is what they use to command a lot of their games.
And Quincy, going over to you, are there any champions that you'd like to see coming out, either for game one or for the entirety of the series?
I mean, in jungle, obviously, Zyra is a huge topic right now. We have seen Guri being excellent on it, and last series we also saw that Levi can also play it. To my personal preference, it was not as impressive as Guri's one, but I actually think that it would be a smart pickup for the GAM side just to still have Levi on a decent AP jungler, which he likes to play, and just to deny it from Guri, so he has to go for his second best option. That would be definitely lower on the priority list for them. So I just expect them to basically take away their priority picks from each other, which is, for example, as I mentioned earlier, Renekton for the side of Nanawe, Zyra for the side of Levi, and if not, I mean, Levi was also ready to play like some of the weird stuff from earlier days, like the Karthus, or even the Shyvana, which has a very weird item build at the moment, with the Spear of Shogun and the otherwise AP heavy build.
And I know no one asked me, but I'm going to say it anyway. I would love to see a Jin getting locked in because then we could hear Yulwei absolutely mauling throughout the
Yes.
entirety of game one.
That's what we should do. We should talk about picks that we want to get picked because this is our last series in the
Yeah.
VCS, probably one of our last times covering them without going to APAC. So, what picks do you want to see today? That's a cooler question to answer.
That's what I asked Quincy.
I'll ask a
Yeah, you
cooler.
actually did. Yeah, actually, I want to see Yorick. I don't think anyone would
There
ever
we
play
go.
it, and
There we go.
I'm not
There we go.
recommend it
Let's
either
go.
way, but I want to see it. Yeah, gotta say.
Yeah.
And also Jin because of what you earlier said. I mean, I just
Yeah.
like hearing Yurei moan about a pick
Eating.
being horrible, and that's just the most fun of VCS. I think most watchers even tune in because of that reason, right?
Yeah. And let's not forget as well, we know Hankei quite well, who is now coaching for Viking Esports. I think Hankei, he loves us enough that he'll give us that Elise pick we've been desiring for so long.
Elise would be a good one for Catharsis. That would be nice.
Catharsis? Oh, right.
Yeah, Karthus,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Karthus? Elise
Yeah,
for
Karthus.
Karthus. Yeah.
Yeah, Elise for Karthus. That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
Uh,
And of course, a Kindred as well for Carrix.
Kindred would be a good one for Carrix. I don't know who you play, so I don't think it matters.
I play boring supports like Leona, so I'm getting that anyway.
Probably Morgana. That's what I guess. Morgana support, something like that.
No.
Yes.
What?
Because
Where?
no one wants to watch Morgana, so.
Yeah, that I can get behind. I ban her every game anyway. Rebel, what would you like to see though?
What would I like to? I had a rant about this yesterday. I would love to see anybody pick an assassin. If you're gonna pick 3 range characters and also an AP jungler, for the love of everything, pick an assassin. Pick Zed. Pick Nefiri. I don't even care if it gets stumped. I don't care if the items are bad. Pick it so I can enjoy it for one singular game. It would be so cool to see like Kadi
Does
go off
Elise
on
count
Zed
as
and
an assassin?
No, Elise is a spider.
Okay, fair enough.
The
Yeah,
theory isn't that
I-
bad right now, so they could be picked. But as I've seen it in like the lower tier German leagues that I would cast, and it was surprisingly successful, I gotta say. So the theory definitely had a strong point. I just gotta say, in the more higher, like almost major region level of play, I think it might fall flat just to the coordination of the teams and assassins generally being awful there.
Okay, here's my question for you though, Quincy. What if we got instead of a team secret classic, we got Nefiri Galio as a combination instead of like the old school Nocturne Galio or anything like that with the delivery. Instead, it's Nefiri Galio where you have this assassin and then you've got the defense on top of it. That would be a cool little adaptation that we could see.
Yeah, but have you seen the leap range of Naferia? It's like 1,000 units. It's nothing like Nocturne. It's a joke, basically.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. I mean, would be a good joke for the. I mean, it's the last game of the VCS anyway. I mean, who's going to hold them accountable, right? They already make worlds.
Exactly.
Might as well try it.
Yeah, might as well do something.
I've got to
You know?
clarify. Last series of VCS, right? We've got 5 banger games coming up. 100% going to 5 games. Also, in the stands, they have some really cool like light up, glow up bracelets, and they make me very excited. I don't know why, but they look really cool.
I think their venue is insane. I know this was only for like 2 days that they did this, and it's special because obviously it's like one of the final series for VCS. But this has been it's been really cool to see the fans interact with like the teams on stage, because we had for a long time there where like we were doing this over like the like pandemic, and so there was a lot of us indoors for a long time. They got canceled, I think, and weren't able to go to Worlds for a couple of years there, and so it was really rough. So it's really cool to see, the fans come out in mass and be able to watch them, especially for one of the final moments, maybe of the league individual. Oh, little Maokai's in the bottom right there. Don't think we forgot about him.
There we go. We need a Maokai to get locked in as well, just for the pauses. The many pauses that we had for anyone new to the VCS English. Essentially, every time that there's a pause, we add a little poro to Maokai. I don't know why there are 3 poros on the Maokai right now, because we technically have not had a pause yet in this series.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really count as a pause if they just deny that the technical issue is present, right? I mean, they can just lie to us and just pretend that there are no issues. And it was just scheduled that the game will start at 2 p.m. German time, right?
Yeah, if they pause the game, they're just actually having a coffee break, right? It's not a technical pause.
Yeah.
To be fair, Rebel, you're probably going to need your coffee. What time is it for you at the moment? 5 a.m. in America?
No, it's actually 7:30. The games have
okay.
gotten
You're
much
fine
later
then.
for me. No, yeah, I've been actually sleeping a normal amount of time, so it's pretty nice.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
I do think we are close to getting into picks and bans. We saw lots of cheering in the stadium, which I thought meant we were jumping into draft, but clearly not. We were just getting massively baited by the stadium.
Maybe they also got baited. I mean, maybe they're kind of just like us, right? I mean, they just wait for the draft and they're getting impatient and they cheer when they see like some signs of the draft maybe starting, and maybe they just got baited.
Have any of you actually been in a LAN for any league event when there is a pause, and then sometimes they play like random games to keep the audience entertained?
Yeah.
What games did they play for you, Rebel?
I've actually been the caster, and so I walked around at a venue and I was talking to people who had never watched League of Legends before, and I was asking them how they thought it was, and I got some cool anecdotes about people that they were in St. Louis, which is a big sports city, so they didn't really know much about League of Legends, but they knew a lot about competition, and basically all I could convince them of was like, hey, there's a team from St. Louis, and they're like, well, what team is that? And I'd tell them, and they'd be like, all right, well, we're supporting them. So that being said, when you're in a big arena like this, you can't play a ton of games, I suppose, but you can definitely. I think everybody's here and electric to watch the team start. So like, you don't really need to like prop them up with like a bunch of like games and nonsense, because they're ready to watch the finals.
It's what was I going to say? It's the calm before the storm, before the crazy draft starts, and we get all of the weird, wacky, and wonderful picks that we know and love the VCS for. I would really like to see an Akali, actually. We've seen so much Akali in the past, namely from the likes of Harsmed, who is sadly not playing in this final. But if I could see an Akali, that would be it. Wonderful.
It's a fun champion to watch for sure. I mean, maybe arguably not that good in the meta right now, but I mean, here and there you see an Akali pick, right? So it's definitely something that you can play in some matchups, and especially with like mages coming back into the game, it could be playable. But as long as there's an AD carry standing in the mid lane, I don't think that an Akali pick would have a lot of fun. I mean, especially now we play Zeri, Corki, Tristana, and one I forgot, Smolder, I think. Yeah, they all played mid lane right now, and yeah, would suck for the Akali for sure.
So I've thought of a new topic to discuss, which is, I guess, something that we tend to discuss a lot in normal seasons, but we haven't been on the broadcast much this season, so we've not really had a chance to discuss it, which is how do we see VCS doing at Worlds? Yes, I've asked the cursed question, done it, but I will do it. Rebel. Do you want to give your thoughts first?
I tell you the truth, I don't know. I really don't. I don't watch a ton of League of Legends outside of like every once in a while I'll catch Korean games and I'll catch Chinese games. I don't really watch VCS or LCS. I don't really watch LEC anymore, so it's tough to gauge them
Oh,
against those
LEC's garbage anyway.
It
LCS.
is, yeah.
Except for
Yeah.
Can
AK.
confirm.
AK is cool. But so maybe with Europe falling off a cliff and LCS, maybe they dropped to like 8 teams this year, so that probably didn't help a ton. And then maybe there's some option for VCS. Maybe there's some hope for some VCS upsets or maybe even just defeats of teams from more major regions. Who knows? That would be a really cool thing to watch in their like final season as a full split. I mean, they got perpetually underrated for such a long time. It was until they beat major regions that they started shipping 2 teams. So they had a lot of really talented players, and it took them doing something on the world stage to show off. Maybe something like that again would be quite nice as part of the swan song season here for the VCS League.
One
I
hope
will
for
say-
me would be that if the VCS is like from the level of play like stagnating or slightly improving, and LCS and LEC just come kind of closer to us, right? Because they are just kind of looking like they're falling off a cliff, right? Team Liquid looks decent, G2 at some days looks decent, but like the lower seeds from LEC and LCS do not look good at all. Like they have like no redeeming qualities, I gotta say. And like GAM and Vikings surely have their chances, right? I mean, especially like Fnatic. I mean, I could definitely see like the team with Humanoid stomping lane and Oscar stomping lane, and then Fnatic just not knowing how to close out a 10k gold lead against the Vietnamese team. I mean, and them just losing this. I mean, it's not out the window for sure right now.
I love the enthusiasm and the optimism, Quincy. It's not about us getting to their level. It's about them coming down to our level.
Yes.
Perfect. Oh dear. Well, Vikings and GAM will be playing, representing us at Worlds. And there has been that whole change of the Worlds format last year where they no longer have... They have completely removed play-ins, and now they just have the big bracket with the Swiss, right? For either of you to remember how Worlds works now.
There's still play-ins, but then it's Swiss instead of
Yeah.
groups.
I think you're
Oh,
wrong,
there
yeah.
we go. Yeah, playing still there. Boo.
Uh-huh.
Which is
So I
kind of
mean,
unlucky, right? Because you would usually, if you are like an underdog team at Worlds overall, which don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on the VCS or anything, but overall we are an underdog compared to like LPL, LCK, LEC, LCS. If you're an underdog, you would prefer to have Swiss as early as possible because there at least you have like 3 chances, right? In play-ins, it's at best case double elimination, and I think it is. They have 2 chances, and yeah, I mean, in Swiss, if you like lose 2 rounds, then you also play a team that also lost 2 rounds, and at some point, man, you just gotta start winning. But the teams also tend to get easier if you keep losing.
Yeah. But then you also get all of the weird brackets, and then you look at one team that has somehow had a really tough run, even though they're losing a bunch of games. So I don't know. I quite like the new Worlds format. I think it's more fun that way rather than having groups and then you've got a group of death or a group of life, as some people would like to say.
I would like to see a 16-team Worlds round robin instead of anything else. I think playing like hundreds of games over the course of like 3 days would be sick. It'd be impossible, but it'd be awesome. That's my take on it. It'd be much more fun to watch every team play every other team like in a double round robin, like 31 games over the course of
So
few days.
with that in mind, Quincy will get this, but do you think we could have Worlds done in the same way that they do like the Chess World Championships?
No,
No,
I don't
it'd be
think
too
so.
boring, wouldn't it? Yeah. So
You
for
mean
those
where
who
you
don't
have
know,
like
the way
you mean where you have like a whole like candidates where you take like the top 8 teams, play them against each other in round robin, then play against whoever the old world champion was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you
That's-
have like a massive 30-game series against the in essentially the final game. Or the
That
final
would
series.
suck. Oh my
It
god,
would
I would hate it. Yeah. Like,
Best of 7
I mean,
between the
the
2
stage
top teams.
before the finals would be banger, but the finals itself would be boring, which is kind of
Yes.
weird, you know?
Which is kind of like, to be honest, I don't think it is like that in chess. People get really excited more excited over the finals than they do over the candidates, I think.
I mean, yeah, that's how world championships work, right?
Yeah, but
Kind of, yeah.
we're saying if we did it for league, it'd be the other way around. That's the whole point,
Why
Rebel.
would it be? See, the reason it wouldn't work for League is because you'd have like a 2022 situation where like DRX lost like half of their roster or their entire roster and then became like a bottom half team in LCK, and that's your world championship contender. Is like somebody's playing against that. That would be why the format doesn't work.
Anyway, I've been told that while the VCS themselves may not want to admit that there is a technical break happening, we at the VCS English will be true to our viewers and we will be heading into a short break. And when we return, we'll be jumping into game. Although, as I say that, I've now also got reports that we are heading into picks and ban. So, hey, we've got picks and bans. We knew it happened. We just had to queue up the break. We forgot how the VCS
We
was.
have a break. Yeah.
Exactly. So, into picks and bans then, we've got the Leona banned away, something that you mentioned briefly, Rebel. We've also got the Ashe and the Rumble banned away by the side of Vikings.
I think this has to be Zyra. I don't think, unless Vikings have come up with something to beat the Zyra in the jungle, this almost certainly has to be oh, wow. Okay. They're not going to. They're going to give it over.
And I believe we have replaced one German with another as Yulway jumps into the broadcast.
Hello, hello. I've been standing around for 40 minutes now. Finally. Okay.
I want to get Thanos snapped. This isn't fair. If we replace all 3 members of our intro desk, does that mean we have a different desk?
Okay. Yeah, we have Zyra first pick again. So that's actually quite important, I think, for this matchup, because Zyra, last time Vikings tried to first pick her, and then Guri looks amazing on this champion. So once again, Viking can't get their favorite jungler.
Okay.
And it's something that we heard.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry, go.
I was gonna say that does give up the freedom to give Shogun one of his better champs in the Ezreal, and the brand is like, I think over the course of the season, Guri was better on the brand than he was on the Zyra. Not to say Zyra is not higher priority, just that, again, I think Guri was more comfortable on this pick than he was on the Zyra. Maybe they feel confident in taking it. Obviously, otherwise they would have banned it out instead of the Smolder or instead of something else. But...
Ooh. That's an interesting hover. I don't think we've seen this champion in recent history. Okay,
Wow.
So a lot of pressure onto the bot lane, and they don't want to let a Shogun just scale for free, because he is a fearsome Ezreal player, most played champion in regular season. So they want to put some pressure, some kill lane here into the Shogun Ezreal.
Interesting. It was funny, I was going to mention something about it being like an old counterpick to Zyra, and I was going to like joke about that and be like, oh, they could play Jungle Misfortune, that'd be funny. But like, then they whip it out because it's apparently quite a decent champion. I've heard about its power being quite a bit higher. I know they've been picking a little bit in some other regions as well, like they've been picking it in the LCK and they've been picking it in some other places. So I'm not shocked to see it come out as a response to some of the more like hyper offensive or the scaling that we've seen on the bottom side of the map. I'd even be curious if they're willing to flex it mid. That would be a wild take as a Misfortune mid here in the first game of the Grand Finals.
Ooh, wow. I'm not sure if you've seen it anywhere in the world. I would have to research that. Maybe you two can do that while we're in game. But yeah, I'm very interested to see the TF top lane ban from Vikings, because TF top lane actually really didn't work for Kiaya in the last series they played against each other. Kiaya, he had a really good laning phase because he's Kiaya, obviously he did. But they couldn't really connect with the TF late game, and the team fighting power just wasn't really there. Split pushing didn't work out for them, so I'm quite confused by this ban. And I just hope Nanaware does not think he can play another Gnar game, because please, for God's sake, please don't play Gnar again.
Well, the Gnar is open. We'll see whether it comes through. I'm also remembering to a year ago when Rel was also being played in the jungle, and I keep looking at that trio of champions and thinking, oh, maybe they can put Rel in the jungle and we get something hyper-aggressive like Misfortune Zyra.
Rel jungle got absolutely
not going to happen.
Yeah.
Zyra jungle is also just way too good to not play her jungle. Like, she clears in under 3 minutes, so why would you ever pick her in a different position? It's so strong.
Absolutely. Well, we do still have the mid and top laners to get locked in. We've seen the Kennen banned away, the final ban now for the side of GAM. They're actually giving some respect to the Naways. No.
They didn't need to give respect to it. If you watch the last series, they did not need to get... That would be crazy. An Aksha on top would have been a wild thing. I think mid makes more sense here. I like the Corki pick a lot more than trying to pick top lane. One of the things that I think they needed to bridge is that, like, I wanted to mention it earlier on the desk. In terms of Vikings, they can carry out of 4 positions. Nodaway did not show that he was able to be a carry in either of their last 2 series that they played in playoffs. I would love to see them find a way for him to be able to do something. The Jax was what I was looking at, but obviously I think GAM is privy to it, and the problem is you can't even let it through easily on the side of the Vikings, because then you're giving it to Kiaya. So it's not as easy as like, oh, that's a perma ban or something like that. Like, they have to be confident to take something else into it. So we'll see if Nodaway has anything that he can build into this, because he was not very good in their last series.
And just to jump in, the Zeri has been locked in, so Yulway, you might be having a little bit of that flex of the misfortune to the mid lane that you suggested was a possibility.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen because Zeri's also picked into Corki many times. So it's a global phenomenon, the mid lane Zeri, and I think it just goes super well into the Corki. I think that it's better to put a lot of pressure onto the bot lane. We have the Nasus hover. They watched LCK this morning apparently because it was played today by Keen. And it was really annoying to deal with for the enemy AD carries. I think they won the game as well. So could be an option. I mean, you need negative mechanics to play this champion, so it's a fit for Nanoware.
That was
and in the end, it's the Gwen picked in. And I always see Gwen as this hyper weak side top laner rebel. You're playing into something like a Camille, and it's not just any Camille, it's Kiaya's Camille.
I really like Gwen as a champion, but I don't know that it fits in the draft. I actually really like the idea of the Nasus. We're in a meta where it's like, okay, we're seeing multiple marksmen, we're seeing multiple people. You can shred magic resistance with like Abyssal Mask combined with it. There's a lot of things you can do with like a tanky champion with a massive attack speed slow, so I would have liked it more. That being said, game number 1, I think they both need to get their thing together. So I'm going to say I think GAM has got this one to start with, but we'll see where they go from here.
Well, Rebel's prediction is GAM. We'd ask for Yulway's prediction, but technically he's a caster, so he can do that in a few moments' time. We're heading into game. Carrix, Yulway, take us away.
Carrix, you're muted.
Fuck! Oh, it's a VCS English classic. Your way. It's been 5 years since we first cast together. Isn't that insane?
That is very insane. And it's still GAM, it's still Levi in front of us after 5 years. Can you believe that?
Yeah, we're still watching GAM go to finals. And these whippersnappers on our analyst desk saying, oh, all the classic VCS champs are gone. And then, not 10 seconds later, saying, oh, Shyvana's been popping up. You don't know your history. It's not in game 1, but if Shyvana's around, the VCS is around.
Oh, yeah. Let's go into game number 1. This is finals time, and these two teams are the best teams in the league by far. They completely swept everyone aside. No one even stood a chance, and now we finally get to crown the champion, the last champion of the VCS. I think the best trophy in the world will go to one of these teams for one last time.
Yeah, exactly. Putting that final name on the shield that will be enshrined forever. Man, I get a little bit choked up just thinking about it. VCS has been a big part of our lives, your way. But regardless, into game we go. It is Levi on this Zyra, Guri on the brand. Very powerful junglers for both pivotal members of their teams.
Yeah, I think Guri definitely prefers the Zyra, but as Rebel pointed out, he's a very good player of any AP jungler, so I think he's fine with the brand. He did play the brand yesterday as well, and he looked decent. He had a good game, so I think he's going to be alright. Let's see if Levi actually goes for some of the strategies that Guri went for in the series just last week, because he invaded very aggressively on the Zyra. He went and invaded Xinjiao. He invaded, I think, Viego as well. So Zyra definitely not the weak, frail support champion we used to see in like season 5, where she got one shot by LeBlanc every single game. No, she's actually one of the strongest early game champions, especially with her plants being able to control space, entrances of jungles. So I have my eyes on Levi here.
Yeah, but when you used to get one shot, you get to fire a cool little seed and you can get a counter kill. As there is an early engage in the bot lane. Easy Love taking a lot of damage, has been ignited up. Shogun trying to land those Qs, but Elio doing a great job body blocking, and now they're going to turn it back around. Shogun so low, flipped back, and oh, it's disaster as Easy Love has picked up first blood, and the stun onto B will mean he has to flash. GAM get off to a lead.
Perfect start for the side of GAM's bot lane. They are supposed to be the weak point. EasyLove is not supposed to be able to compete with the likes of Shogun. This is the one spot of the roster that everyone always says is weak or maybe attackable for other teams. But they start with a kill onto Shogun. The counter pick worked out perfectly.
Have a look at the replay here. It does start off well, but Elio with the body blocks is so clutch, blocking every Q.
And they just overextend. There's so much damage from the Rel, actually. Usually you just ignore the Rel because this champion doesn't really deal much damage. But this early in the game, when she can just constantly auto-attack you, use her Q to heal and deal even more damage, break your armor as well. Oh, no time for that. Nowhere.
Yeah, is ignited up, but Guri here in time dealing a lot of damage to Levi. That is that brand diff. Kiaya did invest the ignite as well. Of course, no flash on this Camille, so Nunaway, not in a good position because this wave is in a terrible spot. He's actually not going to back. I think this is correct. He has to try and fix this wave.
An interesting matchup. Usually we see the Gwen into tanks. She was picked into the Camille. Very risky and even more reinforcement for GAM.
I think they need to just look for a trade, but it's a lovely flash there from Elio. They just execute Guri. Nunaway should be able to get away. Nothing Levi can do, but that is a very valuable buff reset, and Guri will be steaming.
And that's bad for top lane, and it's even worse for the jungle matchup. First kill goes over to the Zyra. Look at her items. She just went for the pan boots instantly, so even faster in the jungle now. She doesn't need additional damage, really, to clear. Her plants just take care of that. So with additional movement speed, she can gank, she can come in from angles you don't expect her to come from. So this is a super promising start for GAM. And I have to say, Vikings, like yesterday actually, look a little nervous in the first 5 minutes of the game.
And you can't necessarily blame them. So many of these players, they're not new to this by any means, but it's still, you're going up against GAM in a best of 5 in the grand finals. Nerves are natural. We are only 5 minutes in. They need to sort it out. The one bright spot is Guri, despite dying, didn't have any camps coming up. He actually just resets to the side that was starting to respawn. So while obviously not good to die,
that's dangerous.
Shouldn't be too bad. Nunaway could be in trouble, but he is Gwen. If he gets another stiff flashes forward, and he solo kills Kiaya your way.
Yeah, the hope comes from a spot we didn't expect it to come from at all. It's a solo kill for Nunaway against Kiaya of all people.
Can he get away from
He
Levi?
got solo killed so many times.
Should be able to with a W. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, nicely done. Yeah, Nunaway got solo killed by Kiaya so many times in the semi-final or upper bracket final, and now he finally repays it. The counter pick is working out so nicely. I didn't really believe in this counter pick, the carry for Nunaway into a carry and a late game scaling side laner for Kiaya, but it seems like he knows this matchup, and that's a kill for the Gwen, kind of giving hope back to Vikings.
Yeah, that's a really big, and I think that's actually particularly important that, as you said, it is Nunaway that gets it. This person that looked like a bit of a liability. Let's have a look at the replay. It is just Kiaya taking a few too many snips.
Yeah, and I was super scared for Nunaway because if Kiaya hits level 6 here, Nunaway is 100% dead. But apparently Nunaway was very aware of the experience situation, and he does back off here while the Hextech protocol, the shield, I hope that's the correct name. But yeah, the shield was running, so he tried to back off, and then he re-engaged. But speaking of re-engage,
there is that level 6. Kuri does a lot of damage as he goes down. Traded back out immediately onto him. B, he's a squishy Alistair. Nunaway wants to come in from the side. Cardi flashing over the wall, trying to get onto Emo. Can't quite do it. That Levi ultimate, so good. They take down Cardi. B dives back in. Nunaway, you need to be the hero here. Doing a hell of a lot of damage. He needs to find more. Throws out another set of the ultimate. I don't think it's enough.
It's complete disaster for the side of Vikings, so close to killing all three of these people, and all three walk away living. And look at that, GAM also gets all the grubs. Oh, okay, one grub actually went over to Vikings, but 2 grubs is more than enough. They walk away with 2 kills on Zyra and 2 kills on Emo on the mid lane Zeri. So the game just exploded in GAM's favor. Out of nowhere, it's a 3k gold lead. How did this all get started? Looks like
That was a bit
Emo
of
was
poke.
kind of baiting them, but then Kiaya over the top, and Guri, the flash just took Kiaya with him to the other side, and Guri, crucially, is not level 6. 6 would have been a huge spike there. Brent could have bounced between all the targets, but he's not 6. Levi does hit 6 here. I think Levi very aware of his current level or his experience bar, and just kills 1 minion, goes to 6, and then turns around the whole fight with a quick use of his ultimate. This is just sad. Nanoware doesn't have the damage to follow up. He doesn't have the movement speed to stick to Emo, I should say. So in the end, 5-2, 6-2 now in kills for GAM.
Yeah, disaster going from bad to worse here for the Vikings. Guri just being an uncharacteristic weakness here. 0-2 already. You can say that it's not really his fault necessarily, but sadly, he is the one paying the price. Going down 0-2, Levi getting very far ahead. Basically just a full set of pen boots ahead. And in this matchup, that is absolutely mission critical. Kiaya as well, benefiting. 4 assists picked up. The counter matchup is there. Nunaway looked good. He got that solo kill, but now you're a Sheen behind.
Yeah, and he always has to keep in mind that he's an Ignite down in terms of summoner spells, so he shouldn't overextend into this matchup, because Camille obviously can lock you down, and against Ignite Camille with ultimate running, you're probably dying. So yeah, Nanoway has to play it very carefully, wait for his opportunity, see if Kiaya oversteps again, and then maybe try to kill him again. But I think for now, top lane is just going to be a farming. Both top lanes are just going to scale and farm, try to get some items. And the action is probably going to center around mid lane as everyone makes their way towards the Zeri Corki matchup.
Yeah, interestingly, we didn't see it earlier, but there has been a bit of a split in the early grubs. Vikings got 1, GAM did get 2, and now B moving up towards top side, but is spotted. A lot of damage dealt. Guri not going to be able to get anything done. Kiaya playing super defensively, seeing that support coming. Bit of wasted time.
Getting absolutely annihilated there. B desperately needs his ultimate, because without the ultimate we saw... Okay, Elio, we don't talk about that Q, but Levi can just one-shot him, essentially. So, yeah, I think B has to stay in the lane for a little bit longer. The grubs are already gone, so there's not really a reason to go towards top side. I think just laning 2v2 for a while, and at least getting to that crucial level 6 and ultimate point is advisable for the side of B. He's still level 5 now, but he's walking back to the bot lane.
Yeah, that said, Elio is, of course, also level 5, so there hasn't been a support gap opening up. That is something that often does matter. Vikings did also take a Drake a little while ago, so while things are not looking great for them, could be a lot worse, as Guri throwing out a hell of a lot of damage, but unfortunately it's 1v2. Levi, though, burning. The Rockets not quite get a land. Cardi tried so hard. Emo, I don't know if that E was advisable, but Cardi doesn't want to go in.
Carti unfortunately there, so Emo actually saw his opportunity because Carti had no spells to try and attack him on the clapback, but Levi walks away with 1 HP. We could definitely see the Brand being a potent and very strong burst jungler there, because he's so far behind. He's now own 3 and still almost able to one-shot Levi with a combo. Levi, unfortunately for Guri, walks away. Yet another kill to the mid laner, and we have seen how Zeri can solo carry games, mostly actually in the hands of Carti, of all people. So this time they have to play against the Zeri, and this Zeri is 3-0 after just 11 minutes.
Yeah, that's a bit of a disaster. Let's have a look at the replay here, as it's just Guri caught out.
Yeah, we can see the ultimate bouncing there. 3 bounces on Levi, so almost perfectly played there from Guri, but still not able to kill him. Very unfortunate. And you have to think about the early game. If he got one of those early kills, maybe he would have had the money for 1 extra tomb or for 1 extra set of boots, and then that could have been enough to kill Levi there. So the advantage is snowballing fight after fight after fight.
Absolutely, and 3.5k down at 12 minutes is not where you want to be, but if Fnatic has taught us anything,
What?
it's still throwable.
Yeah, I think it's time to talk about Vikings' amazing... Oh, never mind. I think we have another huge clash brewing here in the jungle. But it seems like Viking just wanted to secure one more. I mean, the enemy team can still get to 4 grubs, so that's not really anything they accomplished there by denying one of the grubs. They will still get the buff, the crucial spawn of the grublings when hitting towers, so unfortunately Vikings not quite able to prevent that from happening, and extra pushing power now for the very strong assortment of side laners and even just pushing champions on the side of GAM will mean, yeah, this is going to scale nicely into the later stages of the game as well.
For sure, but you were starting to allude to something with Vikings. Maybe not the best time to talk about Vikings, but let's do it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they've been super impressive in some of their macro decisions, especially game 1 yesterday. They did look shaky in game number 2 and game number 3, but game number 1 was so impressive where after 5 minutes of very equal exchanges everywhere on the map, they were actually a little bit behind in kills and pressure. They just started playing super smartly around the map. They rotated all their laners, they got tower after tower, they got all the neutral objectives, and in the end, they closed the game in 29 minutes. So this team, by far the best mid-game rotational macro I've seen in a very long time in the VCS. It's one of Hankei team's specialties. GAM actually got to a very high level as well last year. So maybe they can find a way to get out of this kind of slump in the early game, but it's definitely harder when the game is this far in the opponent's favor, because most of the time where you try to go 1-for-1 or just try to trade objectives, if the enemy team is already so far ahead and has items that you don't have, the trades are not going to be favorable and you're going to trade down. So let's see if Vikings can actually find a way to use their macro prowess here.
I want to ask you a question your way. What do we think about Bork first on Zeri and Bloodthirster first on MF?
So Bork versus Zeri is actually something we see almost every game now, especially in other leagues. I think Kati is one of the few Zeris who doesn't really like to do it. I think last week he shied away from that, tried to go more into late game, but most Zeris actually prefer this early game spike with the Blade because it makes him much better in 1v1 matchups against melee champs as well. She can kite, she can get a movement speed buff and just walk away if there's anything dangerous happening to her. So it's a very strong first item on the Zeri champion. The MF, I think, is just to counteract the poke against Shogun, right? If you stay in lane against Ezreal, you're gonna hit by a Q, and especially with the extra power of the Trinity Force, they stack up, right? If you don't have any healing on MF and you get hit by 2 Qs, you probably have to recall. So this is just to stay in lane longer to apply pressure onto the Ezreal.
There is actually a little bit of extra sauce with the Bloodthirster on MF. If you have the shield and you get hit, it doesn't turn off your strut, because you have to take health damage. Shield damage does not count, so she actually just has a little bit more runaway power. As it looks like GAM will be getting this Herald. Vikings doesn't look like they want to give it up, but I really don't think you have a choice here.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they can really re-enter the river there, because Levi with all his pressure is just a little too much to deal with. This first pick, Zyra, still in this series looks absolutely crucial. We talked about this last week as well. It was already the most important pick for Vikings last week, and it looks like Levi is able to play her to perfection too. Oh,
well, what a damage! Lovely turn there. They take out the Zeri. Guri's going to go down to the tower, but it's only an unassisted kill to Elio. Vikings fighting back.
Beautiful engagement there. I think there was an E/Q or something from the side of Guri. So perfectly done. Caught Emo completely off guard, and they instantly pounce, and Shogun gets 2 kills. That's huge. Shogun may be the one hope they still have left. And they're still 3k gold down, but a little bit of gold into the back pocket of Shogun might be able to weather the mid-game storm. Look at that. Such a good stun there onto the Zeri, who had flash, but no time to react. Just perfect CC layering. And 2 kills to Shogun.
Yeah, lovely stuff. And as we said, was only the Rel picking up anything on the backside. Of course, on the top side of the map, Easy Love did pick up a tower, so this is a very accelerated MF. Was answered in kind, but we are perhaps brewing a little bit of a clash of the ADCs.
I mean, hopefully. We always want to see that. For now, I still have my eyes on Levi and how he's going to shape and control all the objectives, because we got a glimpse of the power of Zyra in the river, right? And it's only gonna get better when she has more items, more slows, more CC, and yeah, of course, the Dragon and the Baron both in those spots. So I feel like Levi can still definitely put his mark onto this particular game. Let's see how he plays the next few minutes. The Dragon stacking actually hasn't really gone into GAM's favor too much. It's 1-for-1 on Dragons, so they can't play for an early soul, maybe as a win condition. So there's a little bit more time for the side of Vikings to slow down the game and try to weather the storm of the early game, I guess.
Yeah, big charge there onto the mid tower. GAM looking to crack this one open up the map, but so far the wave clear is good enough. That is going to become a problem. Vikings don't have incredible wave clear outside of Guri, who really doesn't want to be spending his spells like that. As soon as the brand spells are on cooldown, that is a short but still noticeable window to engage on him.
Yeah, and a quick check with the top laners, because those two can kind of influence the game in different ways. If one of them gets a huge advantage, we might see a little bit of a split push victory, but so far they seem very evenly matched. We have one item on both sides, the core item number 1. Okay, Kiaya is closer to his sustain item, and maybe he can actually try to fight Nanohuer there, but I think after such a long time, the enemy top laner should also be sitting on quite a bit of gold, so I believe Nanohuer is gonna recall and build at least a decent component here, and then hopefully the top lane matchup is gonna explode a little bit in the next few minutes, because I want to see some melee fighting in the top lane.
Yeah, Nanohuer has taken a solo kill. We know that Kiaya doesn't take those lying down. I'm sure he wants to redeem it, even up that solo kill score. Dragon is started by Vikings, but full vision from GAM, and of course the Dragon kind of telling on them.
Yeah, very smartly done there, actually, from Aguri. Engaging the Dragon, but walking away to scout where the enemy team was approaching from. So nicely done. A little mechanic there with the vision provided for free by Dragon, but still no real way for Vikings to go into the river. It's just too scary into Rel, into Levi, and then also the follow-up ultimate from Easylev. It's just a little too much to risk at this point in the game, especially looking at only the second Dragon for GAM. So they back off. They're going to lose the bot tower as well. It's incremental advantages for GAM, but at this point, Vikings is just trying to survive for long enough for them to make those advantages matter less.
Yeah, exactly. They've just got to weather the storm at this point. As you said before, the Dragon stacking has not gotten out of control. You still have at least 10 minutes before there's a threatened soul. That's enough time that maybe a 3 or a 4k gold lead matters a lot less. You just need to try and stop the bleeding, and you need to keep trying to get whatever you can into Shogun, because I think he is going to be the great hope.
Yeah, but don't forget about Carti either, because look at the CS
Very
count.
true.
He has been trying to be a little bit of a chovy here. He's on 254 CS at 20 minutes. That's quite a lot. He has 2 items completed, and he went for an early cull as well, so extra acceleration there in his gold income. Maybe Carti can actually be the out again. This Corki dynamic between these two teams is so funny, because everyone knows everyone wants to pick Corki, and they actually started to preemptively counterpick the Corki. We saw Smolder early on. We saw now in this game the Zeri coming in immediately, but still the enemy team is still content to just play Corki, and honestly, after seeing these games and how big of an impact the Corki is having, I can't fault them. Yet another game where Corki has silently kind of powered up to a super strong late game threat.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so interesting as well, because Carti has been so incredible on this Zeri. So GAM is sort of put into a position of how do you actually deal with Carti? Carti as well, you know, he's very eager to get one over on GAM as he gets on top of Levi. Ooh, True Shot Barrage, I think, would have done it. But on the other side, Elio caught and taken down.
Yeah, Vikings actually fighting their way back, finding GAM members a little bit too far split apart. They had a little bit of a think about the Baron, but yeah, it's a bit too risky. They're too low, and the enemy team's strongest players are still alive, though Levi did have to use his ultimate, so now they do have a little bit of priority over the map, and hopefully they can break some of the towers. Okay, mid lane tower is actually already down, so I'm not sure if they can get any objectives here. B is in full vision, so Elio just thought he was stronger, and they thought they had the pick on Brand, but yeah, in the end, it's just, you're just playing with a single support there, and he's not tanky enough. And at the same time, B can just activate his ultimate to walk out there. He didn't actually use his ultimate at all. But what happened here?
Oh, it must have been a solo kill. We didn't see it. Yeah, Nunaway just has been caught out, and there's no escaping Kiaya. Hang on. Yeah, it was Kiaya winning it. Only just. Ignite really being a clutch factor there. But 1-1 on these top lane solo kills.
Okay, was TP stopped? Ignite invested from Kiaya. Yeah, there's definitely a huge difference between Ignite and no Ignite, because Nunaway would have straight up won that fight with Ignite on his side. So I think later on in the game, this champion might be able to actually outpace Kiaya and DPS. And if that's the case, if the top lane starts winning, then Vikings can actually play a much more diverse game. They don't have to group all the time. They can actually spread out into side lanes and just clear waves on one side with Corki, and on the other side apply some pressure with a little bit of a hidden Alistar maybe. B can just roam around and try to look for kills with Nunaway. So I think there's a little bit of hope still left for Vikings, even though they're almost 5k gold down.
Yeah, look, this is one of the best looking 4K deficit teams I've seen in a long time. Really doing everything they can. Kiaya is such a hard target. That hookshot wall dive able to get him so far away. Guri unable to find anything there. Still trying to desperately get his mark back on the game. Does have that Liandry, so getting tagged at all is going to be very, very sad. But the same can be said for Levi, Liandry's, and Rylai's. The zone control is online.
Yeah, now we actually have to think about what team fights will look like later on. We already saw Elio being a little bit over-eager with engaging, and he is kind of the only tanky member. Okay, there are some deceptively tanky champions like Zyra, who can build into Zhonya's maybe later and buy a little bit of time, but she's not great at engaging. She's more of a counter-engage, more of a disengaged champion. So if you just look at GAM, their engage is very telegraphed and very hard-force kind of style, especially when you consider Kiaya coming in and trying to force the enemy team into a fight. So it's very easy for GAM to actually underestimate the enemy team's damage and maybe overreach. So I think Vikings, if they play defensively and they just try to... Okay, this is not playing defensively, but...
they know they've seen it. There was a zombie ward in the pit.
Yeah, enemy team is on Dragon, and they know this, so GAM now disengaged from the Dragon, and they're already halfway here. Guri is super low. He tanked too much damage.
Bullet time doesn't do much. Only onto an ulting B. Takes him down to about half. Nunaway has that engage angle ready, but here comes Kiaya. Basically just one-shots Guri into the backside. Goes B, but they cut him out well. Not well enough, as the Vikings are getting destroyed. They just got a little bit too big for their britches, and 4 of them have been cleaned up.
Well, they did the exact opposite of what I wanted them to do. I wanted them to be defensive, wait for GAM to overreach. Instead, they just offered themselves in an open field where the enemy team could come from multiple angles. They split themselves up into multiple different groups. Nunaway was completely useless on the sideline there because he's not tanky enough to go in 1v3. And yeah, GAM just collected kill after kill after kill. And there wasn't really much of a fight back from Vikings because their composition doesn't work when they're split up into different angles. So now GAM really opens up game number 1. It looks like their blue side strategy worked out perfectly in game number 1. First pick Zyra into very, very strong early game with good ganks assisted by Elio. And yeah, now with all the objectives to their name, they have really opened up an almost insurmountable lead.
Now there is, we'll watch this replay, but then we'll go into the terrifying prospect. It was just Vikings. You just can't fight like this.
Yeah, look at Guri's HP. He's essentially out of the fight already. Shogun forced to kite down while the enemy, the other side of his squishy team members have to kite to the left. So now those two are separated. And you need Shogun and Kati to damage Kiaya if he dives into the backline together to punish Kiaya, because in a 1v1, obviously the Camille is gonna win against the Corki. So yeah, they did everything horribly wrong, and I think it was a little bit of a panic decision there to go to the Baron, ill-advised and punished heavily.
Speaking of punished, Nunaway has been claimed as we come out of the replay. Game 1, perhaps just all over, but the crying. But we have a long series ahead of us. Everyone in our production team did pick a 3-2. So it's not like we weren't expecting GAM to get some games your way. The nightmare scenario, though, is that GAM, presumably, go over to red side. Guri, hang on, has to try and find his way out, but it doesn't exist. GAM goes over to red side. They banned Zyra.
They did the last time. Okay, there's a little bit of a last stand for Vikings maybe, with Carti on level 16, but it doesn't really look possible. Yeah, the last series was actually dominated by GAM on red side and trying to ban away the Zyra, and then also following up with an Ezreal early pick, so Shogun couldn't play the Ezreal. Now they just beat the Ezreal, or once this game is over. So maybe they're more likely to leave the Ezreal open this time around. They were very careful not to let Shogun have his most played champion. But let's see what their strategy is. Vikings could always just choose to go back to red side as well if they wanted to. They can ban the Zyra if they think it's too much of a threat, or trade again. So there's a lot to discuss for the pick and bans, but for the rest of this game, it's just a little bit of an Hail Mary after Hail Mary for Vikings. Maybe they can find a way back into the game, but it doesn't look likely.
Yeah, look, it's a tricky situation. This is something that you'd hope the coaching staff have prepped them for. GAM always comes out swinging in these situations. They come out so strong. Their game ones are often incredibly good, as Guri caught again. There's just nothing that can really be done. This is all over but the crying. You've just got to stay prepped. Hankei's got to rally the boys, SOFM, get behind the scenes and just be like, look, it's just game one. It's just game one. You got 4 more to beat them in.
I mean, they did come back after losing game 1 in the series last week as well. Okay, they didn't win the series, but they still equalized to 2-2, so definitely a resilient team. Unfortunately, we've seen this kind of pattern a few times, so it is also possible GAM runs away with the series. Obviously, we don't want that, but we have to acknowledge the possibility, because they have done this kind of thing in the past, where they play a very close series in the upper bracket final and then completely stomp the grand finals. These players on GAM sides, they are experienced, they are veterans, all 5 of them. Okay, Emo maybe not so much, but the other 4, and they know how to deal with pressure. And I think we could definitely see some nerves, some jitters on the side of Vikings on the stage. And I don't think we've seen anything of the like for GAM in this game. Maybe apart from Kiaya's getting a solo kill very early on in the game, but honestly, that can happen in this kind of matchup to anyone. So I feel like GAM has played a really strong game, and Vikings maybe still a little bit rusty, still a little bit nervous on the stage, and hopefully after game number 1 they can find their way into the series and play with a little bit more confidence. They were the best team in the regular season, by far actually the best win rate. They won against GAM in a series in a best of 3. Okay, they lost the other one 1-2, but still by far the best game score in the whole league. So I expect them to show a little bit more in this final still.
100%. Never count them out after just game 1. If we ended the series after game 1's, league would look very different through its history, as GAM are just, they're just going through the motions. They're going to close this one out right. Don't give Vikings any way back in. I assume they're just going to wait about a minute, push their vision line up, take this Baron, and that should be it for the game. But your way, I have to say, we've seen GAM start series really strong before. I seem to remember them winning game 1s against Flash.
Oh yeah. I mean, they won a lot of games against Flash and then ended up losing the series, but that is 4 years ago.
But we were here your way.
It hasn't happened in a while.
It hasn't. Oh, good engage there from Elio, finding his way in. Cardi actually playing Bouncer really well, but the bullet time is lovely. 1 for 1 at the moment. Oh my word! Oh, Shogun has been decapitated. Nanoe doing his absolute best in the backside, but there is just no hope. Game 1 has been over for a while. This is merely the burial, as GAM will take themselves up to a commanding 1-0 lead. Looking lovely here as they strive to put that final exclamation mark on an incredible journey in the VCS.
And this was now the 6th game these two teams have played against each other in the playoffs, and this was by far the most dominant win for GAM. 2nd fastest game of these 6 so far, and the most dominant by GAM for sure. There was barely any question about the who would win this game, especially after some of the early fights going GAM's way. But I still hold out hope that Vikings can find a way back into this, because it's grand finals time. There's a lot on the line here, and they have been the best team. So hopefully they find a way backstage to regroup and play a little bit of a better early game, especially.
Hopefully, but we will be going to just a short little break. Don't go anywhere. VCS English will be back with more VCS action to close out a long and storied history.